It's our last panel of the day, and we're going to be talking about the J.W. Anderson show, and what a panel I have. Joining me is the wonderful lady Amanda Harlech. I also have Laub and Judy Blame. Thank you for being here. What have you been enjoying about London so far, and what are you excited about?
Well, I went to Phillips yesterday, which was great. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite bold, and I've always loved Phillips hats anyway. And it was beyond, actually. It's great seeing all those kind of clothes and hats in that atmosphere as well. The Royal Courts of Justice was just good juxtaposition, I thought.
Good juxtaposition.
It was.
Exactly. I love that.
That's kind of London, isn't it? It's those contrasts, and I think that's having someone like Philip showing on the same schedule as someone like J.W. Anderson. I think that's just how can you sort of compare London to any other fashion city? It's so exciting in that kind of dynamic nature. Do you look at someone like J.W. Anderson and see him kind of having that same career that Philip has had?
I don't know. The good thing for me about London is everyone is quite individual. So it's not great to compare everyone with each other. I think everyone takes it as far as they can here. It's not like, some people get more involved into the business side of it, some people in the presentation of it, and some people don't succeed at all. That's the brilliant thing about London, I think.
To sort of focus on J.W. Anderson, is it someone, I know Amanda, you said you think his work's amazing, is it someone who you've kind of followed closely?
I've followed as closely as I can. I mean, I wish I could come to London Fashion Week, and this is kind of, I haven't been here for years during London Fashion Week, so it's really exciting. But of course, this is the closest I'm getting to it, because I'm in Rome and Paris, or I've been at home writing against a deadline, so this is extraordinary actually for me to actually watch a show happening and to be able to react to it. But he's really triggered something in me, and I don't know whether it's his passion for his research, for his fabric, for the way he wants to make things, but there seems to be something that works on so many different levels. It makes it really real. It makes me want to wear them, because there's a passion and a conviction in there, which I miss. Sometimes I miss the emotion in clothes and collections.
Yeah, I think there's an intelligence also behind what he does, and I mean, we were looking at the mood board just now, trying to work out what he's going to do and where the ideas are coming from. But I think he's always mixing up a lot of different ideas, and I was actually thinking when I was looking at one of his older collections that it reminded me in a sense of something like Prada, because it can sometimes be a bit ugly, but it's quite considered and intelligent and thought through.
Well, Jonathan was a window dresser at Prada.
And didn't he work for Manuela Pavese?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's that whole family. Amazing. He's got that. He understands that, coming up with the ideas.
Maybe it's that thing of understanding to go behind something as well. So he's not somebody who just reacts to the surface, but he wants to know the story behind. And it's those echoes, and that's what makes it really rich for me and intriguing. It's like looking at his mood board. I feel the pathways in between, but I'm not quite sure what they mean. But isn't that incredible when you don't quite know what something means, and yet it affects you? And actually, that's where fashion gets really exciting, where it's that change, where it feels a little uncomfortable, but you know there's a meaning there, and suddenly it inhabits you, and you want to wear it.
Do you think that challenge and that sort of, I don't want to say provocative because it's a very tired word, but that kind of way in which something can provoke you is perhaps a better way of putting it, and the kind of considered nature of his clothes, do you think that's missing from a lot of kind of his generation of designers that are sort of coming out of London?
I mean, I think a lot of the commercial designers, or a lot of this generation maybe thinking about the end product as opposed to the ideas. This is maybe he's starting from an idea, a lot of different ideas, and going through that process. He's not thinking about the end product until he actually comes to put the pieces together. and I think you get something very different, very intriguing and very unexpected. Like,
And
we don't know what he's going to come up with here, and that's why we can't wait to see it.
But he's not afraid.
Yeah, and it's
You know?
brave, yeah.
The first time I became aware of him, I went to a press office and his things were there. And the first thing attracted me was these incredible accessories. And I was like, who made these? I mean, I adore a good accessory. Of course.
Really, Judy?
And that actually led on to the clothes. And he was actually there in the press office when I was there, but he let me kind of go through everything. I kind of started by picking up one thing, which led all the way round the room, and I looked at the collection. So you knew just one thing sparked off a whole, and I think really that's how he works. You know, when you can pick up one thing and it can just inspire you. But he's very clever about putting it together. It's almost like a jigsaw.
Yeah.
But he's not academic, and I don't think it's manipulative or calculating.
Yeah.
You know, it's that thing of that I feel there's an innocence to it. Not innocence in the sense of being naive, but an openness, a generosity to be intrigued and to allow, to follow the path, however random, but because you really feel, and that's great. I think the end result,
Appeared.
Okay.
This looks a bit like, I mean, I was looking at his resort
Oh, it's a
collection, and it's like, it's quite similar. I mean,
Got those
it
accessories.
leads on, doesn't it?
But I think he's not afraid of that. You know, he's not afraid to revisit an idea. I think it's less kind of revisiting the same types of piece. It's more something that he wants to work on even more. You get the sense that everything with him is very considered. And
But I think that's how you establish an identity, and when you're a really young designer, I don't know how many, he hasn't done that many women's wear seasons. He's outside of menswear.
Well, he's a menswear.
Yeah. So you have to...
Last season was kind of his first big show.
Yeah.
And collections before that.
The colours are beautifully painterly. I mean, you know, that blue, that pink, the placing of that mustard, the stripe down the boots, and then suddenly to say, and here we'll do it in black. You know, this is, he paints, and here we have the painting where he's brought all the colours in, which must be that, is it that rubberized print? So you have texture.
It's hard to see the fabric as well.
That one, which we've actually got the swatch of, that is a very tactile fabric. That one.
These rubberized.
It's rubberized onto the satin. And
It's
then
much more minimal, isn't it? Than, but I suppose you can see all the cutting up of different pieces that he always does. It's like you were saying, like a jigsaw. A lot of the pieces are
I mean,
together.
one of the things that appeals
like he's
to
cut
me
his
about it
cut
is
skirt
it's like,
in half.
is that from Japan, Sweden, or do you
Yeah,
know, it's quite
true.
bold the way he just throws it together, the kind of shape of it. And the fabric, look, the pinstripe
and
with
quite
it.
menswear, because that's what he...
But yeah, it looks that there is like we began with the ruffle, which is quite, which was
really
actually
feminine.
quite girly.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of you taking a girl's skirt and you slice it up the middle. I think that's really
and it's a
exciting.
totally new shape that he would just with the
He
shorts
really did
with
sort
the
of pioneer
skirt
that with
ruffle and like quite sexy, but
Well, he's mentioned, he says in his notes, tailoring and masculine elements are mixed with feminine colours and drapery. Once again, the lines between
Which is
genders
this-
are blurred.
Yeah, but there's a ruffle or it's the pleat.
and that's really what everyone was saying about him when he started. Was his menswear was so strong, but he was doing this menswear that was quite feminine. So he started doing women's wear.
Well, his last
And
men's
that was so
collection was
successful.
kind of
Very
very
feminine,
feminine,
yeah.
and it got a lot. I think it challenged a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, that a lot of that lace that he did, that lace kind of. And what I found funny is I actually interviewed him after that collection. And I said, you know, you kind of shocked a lot of people, and he said, you know, that wasn't my intention. I didn't try and shock people, and I think it was such a simple statement, but you get that with him. He's not actually trying to kind of make an obvious
That's what I
message
mean,
or
it's
do a
not
statement.
calculating.
Exactly.
This is beautiful.
But it's considered, you know, it's calculating, but not.
This is this gauzy? No, it's this.
I love that
Maybe it's
pinstripe.
I like the flap at the back as well. It's almost like it's like a tailcoat.
But you look at these shapes and they're so refreshing because you don't look at them and think, I've seen that before. I mean, you've seen elements elsewhere, but he's trying something new with his shapes, and he's not afraid to sort of play around.
But I think, again, that's there's the braveness in London, that I think there's an atmosphere of letting people be free to try things and do different things, and it's not so judgmental. Everyone's encouraging people to do new things and different things and find their own identity, I think.
Without wanting to kind of bring up that sort of commercial side, but it's also a very savvy collection, like
So
amazing
beautiful.
jewellery and amazing accessories.
See, I love the masculine pinstripe, and you couldn't get anything more feminine than that peachy organza. And it's just, and this is great. This is this foam rubber, which is light as air.
And I love his hair and makeup. I know it's kind of cliche to talk about that, but he just lets the clothes do the talking.
Yeah.
I like the notes of black coming in.
That's so beautiful.
And you have that evolution of the ruffle and the skirt and the girl
really
and the
Almost a
boy.
conversation between
Girl, boy, it's and actually it's all one.
And it's funny with this material, because see that it's kind of forming its own silhouette with the
Green
trousers.
or something.
But
It's that one.
yeah.
Foam. Neoprene.
It does feel like neoprene.
It's smart as well. I think one thing that Alex Fury, he used to work at SHOWstudio, said about one of his collections is, he adheres to the kind of commercial side, but you never feel like he's been restrained by it. You never look and feel like he's had to sort of change his collection or put an item in that he's not comfortable with.
It's like people aren't going to buy that with the flat with the pleats behind, or they're not going to go for this metallic, quite hard, shiny fabric, but actually he's actually going all the way, which is really exciting. So beautiful. So it's sort of touching almost with the Japanese aesthetic, the freedom to be able to express what is delicate and feminine, or what is brave and boyish and full of a lion heart. It's great to have it all in one collection. But actually, his sense of light on fabric and texture that's what really moves me, because it's what we were saying.
That thing you said where he follows it with a black outfit.
Do you see how it goes?
Tickles
It's almost like he's delineating, he's painting
He's
with
clothed
his collection.
with the black, which I think is, he's exactly.
Oh no, it's ended! Oh no!
You can see them all again.
It does look very Japanese though.
Yeah.
He's changed the running of the show for the running order to actually, it's always, the finale is often now a way of putting your message.
You get the sense with him that everything is perfectly sort of curated and brought together. Nothing's kind of, there's no detail that's kind of left. Everything has to be just so, which I think is really refreshing to see someone sort of put that much focus.
The colours are brilliant, that sunny touch of navy there, you're right. And with that orange.
And all the flat shoes and boots and
What a privilege to have seen that.
Oh, there he is.
There
Give him
he
a
is,
round.
yeah! Great!
And he's just such a nice boy as well.
What does that mean?
So lovely. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
He's absolutely lovely, which I think is so refreshing. You see someone so grounded, and he's kind of had this incredible rise. But he said to me when I interviewed him, he said, I've actually been around for a while, and it was really refreshing because I think he's kind of sat back and he's thought about what he wants to do, and then his moments kind of come, but you never get the sense that he's kind of rushing into anything. He really is taking his time to sort of think and consider. I want to ask you, Amanda, because you've obviously worked with a lot of designers and creatives, the process that goes. But you've had such an integral role to what they do.
Massive one.
Yeah, you're being very modest.
The biggest.
Just a few. But what's the process that goes behind sort of someone refining their vision, whether it's for an individual collection or for their label or their brand?
Well, you should never really compare. I think Judy's absolutely right. You can't really compare, and you would never compare John or Carl. But starting with Carl, his whole thing is to perfect, if you like, well, it's like to evolve the DNA of perfection in whatever collection he's doing. And so he re-evolves from where he left off, which makes him rigorous, tireless. I mean, the man sketches from morning to night. And John's way was always to actually get the very sense, the perfume of the spirit of that woman or that boy in the collection. So his thing was incredibly sensuous, tactile. It was less about a design proposition which would come out through the work, but really about amassing, a story built up of fragments of cloth, of sand, of pressed flour, all of those things. So, both met. I think J.W. Anderson is another designer who I feel has that obsession, and I think that's what makes you a great designer.
From the work, though.
Yes.
And the way it's put together, and the colours.
Conviction, a voice.
What are our we all loved it, you can say, but we all kind of seem a bit stunned by it. But what was your first reaction to it, Judy? What did you take away?
I think he's really clever, and I think he enjoys being clever. He's got that thing where he can design for men and women. Not everyone can do it all the time, but he seems to be able to float from. I have checked his menswear out as well, which I think is interesting for a modern designer to be able to move around like that.
Men's.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting he started with men's. I can't think of anyone else who started with men's, did women's, and did so well with their women's wear. I can't think of anyone.
That's
okay, that's a good example. Yeah, you're right.
I think it's kind of a sign.
Because actually, I feel that there's that same rigour.
Yeah.
Is that kind of a sign of
it? I think.
Would you say similar to Raff?
We're not comparing. We're in London.
But that kind of sense of, I think that sense of kind of blurring the gender lines, which he put in his press release, I think that's kind of a sign of the times. It's such an awareness of what women want, I think, in a way, and what men want, And he is being a bit provocative, but I don't think kind of intentionally. I think it's more that he's willing to actually do what he thinks menswear should be. This was, to me, the only designer that actually challenged what menswear should be about, and who didn't just kind of turn out things that would look nice. And he does that with his women's. He has this idea of what a woman should look like, and it's so sort of thought about. And I think that's something that's really refreshing to see someone.
It's also what you feel like when you wear the clothes.
I mean, he is offering clothes. It depends how provocative you feel. I could be very provocative.
Exactly. I can see you in that lace.
Drop of a Philip Tracy, I'd have that. I might need a fillet to go with it.
Yeah, you might.
But
lose
also,
the black
if I
shorts,
wanted to relax on the tube, I could find something else in there, or travel on the Eurostar. You know what I mean?
He has this sense of his world. We mentioned this before the broadcast started. Kind of everything being a vision of exactly how he wants it to be. And I know you don't. The Topshop collaboration he did, he kind of looked at everything from pencils to like a Rubik's cube, and it's the sense of kind of letting everyone be involved and have a different. You can kind of have a piece of it that you can add to yourself, and then you can have a whole look, or you can just have one thing. And do you think that's kind of an interesting idea, that designers that do create this kind of whole universe and this whole space around their vision?
I think it's very modern, but I think it is, not to be pessimistic, but it is quite commercial. I think he's very commercially savvy, and he understands the sign of the times, and like he's he's selling pencils and cameras, and it is very modern, and everything is to do with lifestyle now. But I mean, it's not the same thing as designing a collection like that. He understands the power of branding, basically. And Topshop is so global. I mean, I was just in New York, and the posters are absolutely everywhere for the launch. And most of those people probably have never heard of him. And that's, someone can buy a pencil and have his name on it, and they'll, like you picked up a bag, and it will intrigue them to the next thing.
That's interesting.
These are his sketches.
This is interesting. The girl with her it's like boy girl.
Like, it could be either.
Yeah. There's slightly something, I think, wonderfully feral
Yeah.
about this creature,
That's really interesting.
you know, and I like that. I love her. It's provocative, yet she's very sensitive. Is it, you know, it could be he with long hair. I love it. I just think that to me, there's a wonderful story there
Yeah.
in that.
I think that's very London too, because you wouldn't see that. The idea of, you know, it's a very dressed down creative look in London. If you look at like the way people dress it, and the idea of like a feral, really cool
Yeah.
girl is a very, I think, very London. Like, you wouldn't see that in New York or Paris.
No, why?
Because it's culturally, it's not. I don't know. Like culturally, if you go out in London, it's almost like it's better to be dressed down than it is to be dressed up. And in New York, it's the opposite. You'd never. I don't know. Sorry, maybe I'm wrong.
I think
Maybe
you
as
go
a
to
girl,
different
maybe
nightclubs, but-
yes, probably I do. But I mean, as a girl, this
Dave,
idea.
where's my hat?
No, but I think you're right in terms of sort of girls dressing today, or women dressing today, we should say. I think there's that, that kind of idea of you sling on a dress and some heels. It's not, I think women want to say something more, and they want to feel that they can kind of put them, this is perfect opportunity, there you go.
Yeah.
So you put it over your trousers.
Yeah,
You
fabulous.
see,
I
I've
worked
got
that in
my
there just
wonderful John dress, but I put it over my trousers.
But that's the thing, you know, it's a sense of it's a more you, and it's an easy,
A relaxed,
yeah,
putting
exactly.
together. And I think this girl is like a real London girl.
Yeah,
You're
not afraid to make her look.
Yeah, and be
really.
relaxed
He's
about
got
it.
a big audience, this man, because you could probably dive into there if you were 20 different people and find three different things, and they'd all walk out the door, and they'd all look completely different like
Unique,
themselves.
and that's the definition
That's
of London.
what's clever about some of these
To make it your
things.
own, really make it your own.
You know, for me, Amanda, I mean, I was there. You know, some of it, you know, the way John used to mix fabrics, like pinstripe, or, you know, there's glorious rose jackets.
Or a bit of Chinese silk, and you mixed
whacked
it with
up something, and
with
even
some
a
felt.
football shirt on their
Exactly.
head. He's got a
He's got
similar
that.
way where
Yeah.
you could shop. I know it's gone top shop, but you can go into that collection and actually find.
But it's got because it's got such a cohesive or convincing spirit to his collection, and that comes from him. That's why every bit has got that spirit in it. It's not a sort of diluted thing, and that's just really exciting.
You know, one of the things that scares me a lot about design at the moment is when you borrow clothes and they go, it's got to be the full look.
Yeah.
And it drives me mad. When I'm trying to do a photograph, I might not need the
That's a
full
frightened
look.
designer that doesn't want it to be taken on to the next thing.
But it's like everyone now, if you borrow the clothes like that. Whereas this collection, you could have fun doing it.
Well, he kind of
do you know what I
designs
mean?
for it to be
I
mixed
don't know
up, I
whether
think.
he has that rule, but it's...
Well, I think if the fact he puts like a skirt over trouser, kilt over the trouser with a shirt showing underneath the skirt, it's designed, I think, for someone to take a piece. And you could wear the whole look, or you could put the top with something else and make it a completely different look. As you said, it's kind of, it's that ease, I think, you know, and it's kind of that individuality which he lets happen through his clothes.
But then all the research and the resource and the sourcing and the fabrication, which he's obsessed with, you know, in Britain or Ireland, you know, you feel that even if everything has a kind of lightness to it, the way it's put together and it allows you in, actually there's such a depth and intensity to his things. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Really
I'm
brilliant.
interested to say depth. I think that's an interesting word, because I think that's something.
To have got to these fabrics
Yeah.
where you've got a rubberized texture on top of
Yeah.
satin, and to have gone through all the
And
treatments
also,
to get
and they're
there.
so different,
Yeah.
all so different to each other.
But it's what you were saying before
This
as
is
well,
amazing.
Amanda, it's almost like a smart naive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is almost like kids drawing on
it's very
walls.
playful.
You know
But
what I
how
mean?
difficult
It's
is
got-
it to draw like a kid when you're
Impossible.
not? Impossible. We all want to.
Yeah.
It's like put the pencil in the left hand and do it.
I suppose. That doesn't even work for me. I stick to collage and a bit of...
Where would you like to see him? I think it's a horrible question in a way because he's just
Horrible
showed a brilliant
question.
but he just showed a brilliant collection. We shouldn't kind of just sweep that under the carpet. Where would you, maybe not where would you like to see him go, but what other channels would you like to see him explore? Where do you see him kind of being in 10 years' time? Because I think we all
Couture.
hope. What do you
I'd
think
like
he'd
to
do?
see his
Yeah, I'd
hand
be
in
disappointed
couture.
if it went into homeware.
Yeah, I don't
You
think
know what I mean?
yeah,
This
yeah.
boy knows too much about clothes to actually...
and textiles,
Yeah.
Well, you can see that.
and the
from his
sense of
fabric.
wearing.
Yeah.
I want to see him move into, mixing noble fabrics and actually the process of making
There
these
is that
fabrics.
pinstripe jacket with the
I
orange or
love
the
that.
peach underneath.
Peach. That's my outfit there.
Yeah.
What do you think his couture would be like?
I don't know, but I think it would have, it would have the intensity and the emotion of this collection that we've just seen, and that's really exciting. And it would be, couture gives you that many more fabrics to create, literally from scratch. Imagine working with weavers and to create a fabric. I'd love to know where he went with that.
He trained as an actor before he moved into fashion, and one thing that I always noticed
An actor.
yeah, he was training to be an actor, and then he said that he kind of woke up one day and he was in a class and he was like, what am I doing? This isn't right for me. And I think there's kind of something theatrical about his clothes, and I don't mean in a kind of costumey, showy way. I mean in a sense of kind of they can transform you and they can sort of act as a crutch in a way and aid you. Is that something that you see with them? It's a bit of a big question if you don't know the humour.
I mean, I think that's the girl that he's talking about when he's, and like Judy was saying, I think he's thinking about lots of different, maybe that's the character he's thinking about at the beginning, and then there are lots of different characters that can come in and make them their own and transform them into another character. I think there's so many different ways that you can wear these clothes, and even the way he styles everything is he might put everything together and lots of print on print and layering and jumpers tied around the waist, and he does loads of things like that, and then when you separate the pieces out it looks like a completely different outfit. So I mean, in a sense that's just kind of, he's imagining lots and lots of different kinds of characters maybe.
Judy, how would you style it? Because you mentioned kind of these designers that say you have to shoot the whole look, but if you took pieces from him, how would you present it, and what kind of vision would you take from it?
Well, I do like that pinstripe, and I liked the dresses at the beginning. I mean, they were almost like a t-shirt that went into a really glorious frill round it.
We can have a closer look at some of it if you want.
Yeah, it's all about you, darling.
I'm topping up now.
You're so... No, but I quite like those. Not so much that one, but...
Go on a little bit more. Just possibly, sorry. There.
That's amazing.
Now
I love that.
It's bonkers, but I quite
I
like
love it,
that.
and I
I
love
love that.
cutting up to the...
I feel like you could wear that
If you're a fabulous looking girl, or if you're not,
Or a boy,
that you'd
for
feel
that matter.
great in that. Yeah, with a pair of pants
Yeah,
underneath
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
We're all going to be wearing it next
Yeah.
time, style different. Because that's the thing, we all could wear it and style
it would look
completely
so
different.
But
different.
also,
Yeah.
for
I
me,
like
those
that
colours,
idea, because the
patterns.
top is actually really beautiful,
Beautiful.
either knit or t-shirt or something, I can't tell.
I don't know if the
Hard to
fabric's
see
going to
what
be
it
in there.
is.
Should we keep having
Doesn't
a
look
closer
like the
look?
fabric.
It looks like it's
Beautiful.
almost something like this. I can see.
Yeah, like a...
But in a cotton knit or something.
But it's
for me,
also tough, even though it's frilled. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I think the
Kind of
fact it's
sporty.
With the split up the
sporty,
front
with that
as
split.
well.
It's kind of like a tomboy, she's climbing over
I
fences.
don't like
She's
the shoes.
Sort
though,
of
unfortunately.
Tazio
It's the
and
only
fish
thing.
tank. Which I really love. I mean, I could... This is a really...
And then in black, I don't know, there's something about this going on.
I like that he followed up with these kind of darker compared to that pattern, but I love that because you can't get the sense of it from the picture, but the touch of that fabric is just divine.
It's
But I
really
agree,
dimensional.
I don't massively love the boots, but I think if he'd put them all in like kind of skyscraper heels, it would have made the whole collection completely different.
And he's always had a thing for his footwear.
No, I'm not
like
saying
No,
it
no,
has
I
to be-
agree.
boots
No,
that he's
I
done
agree.
before.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, you see, that's right up my street.
Yeah.
Tears, a few more flowers.
Yeah, no,
They're
you
great.
He actually said it, he told an interesting story about these, and one thing that I wanted to talk about was...
face mask with flowers.
I like all those belts.
All the belts
it's
going around
kind
it.
of
They have to be beaten up belts.
But he said he showed these and no buyers picked them up, and he said he got loads of messages to him from people saying, where can we buy these kind of...
Yeah,
and I think
can we?
With Jonathan, one thing that's interesting about him is he's, as much as we said he considers each piece that he puts in his collection, I think he also considers fashion, and I think he considers everything around him, and he's not afraid to kind of challenge things and think about why things are the way they are, and shaking things up a bit, and that's quite refreshing to see someone actually kind of really thinking about the industry they're entering and getting involved in. It's always positive to see that, I think, and that'll stand him in good stead. Should we keep looking through?
Where was that flowery boot from last season?
No, it wasn't last year.
You want it, don't you?
Are you going to get it?
They are kind of
You
amazing.
shall have
I'll
it.
make me own.
Can't make your own, you have to get it from...
Go through the boxes at Philips.
I love the shape that he's done, because
And the trouser, the break line
Yeah.
across the top of the foot, all of that is perfectly pitched and gauged, the weight, the kind of...
slit, just so you can see the edge of the side of her stomach.
It's really sexy up to the
Really
rib,
sexy.
if it's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
And then this
Yeah.
is his jewellery, which looks like linked chains, which I keep thinking treatment room. What kind of treatment?
Yeah. You know, I
A little
didn't
bit
get
like
that
bicycle
bit.
chains. But to use this, beautiful pale powder blue silky fabric against the pinstripe with the rubberized, it's this very, very potent playing with different orchestrating. It's like music, different notes, different volumes, and to make the whole thing make sense so that we all sit here and go, God, I really want to wear that.
Yeah.
It's great,
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if those all completely separate pieces, is that
Looks like
You know.
it to
Yeah.
me.
because it is a lot about his styling as well. It's the way he pieces everything
things
together.
together.
The trousers are naked behind, aren't they? I mean, not completely naked, but the skirt doesn't go right behind.
Oh, I don't know.
Do we have a back view?
We don't have back views, which is so annoying.
I sort of feel that the back is as important
Yeah, it's
as
funny
the
that-
front.
That's
Criticism
why we
to
still need shows.
filming.
Yeah, it's got to be,
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
When
Needs
you
to be
see
the
a
back.
woman moving
It's true, it's
and the
totally
front and the
different.
back.
Yeah.
That's why we see
And
the
also we
movement.
can't see the fabric move,
Yeah.
as much as we would if we were sitting right next to it.
This ties into something Judy said, and I want you to say it again, because when you said it to Amy and Laura and myself when you came in, it was so interesting, which is this idea of kind of giving people access to the fashion show. And is it right that it's just kind of this select group of fashion people that get to see it? And why can't, people who love J.W. Anderson go and see his clothes in a show rather than just seeing them kind of in the shop 6 months later?
I think there is an audience there, but I don't know how you organise it.
They're very
and
expensive.
because of scheduling and putting on a show is
Just prohibitively expensive. So to do it more than once, you've got the girls, you've got the whole team, the hair, makeup, everything, and then the minute these samples go presumably for buyers.
Yeah.
It's
The
the whole.
sales and
I
then
wish
press.
it could be in a different
the
way.
example I gave you when
Yeah.
I came into the office was I was in Paris, it must have been 84, 85, and it was when the big the Japanese were ruling there at the time, bringing this completely different aesthetic to Paris. A bit earlier maybe. And then I ended up in Japan, like the same season, but a bit later. And they put on these shows, exactly the same show, same model, same as the Paris. But to an audience of I went to see Yoji with 4,000 other people.
Oh, wow.
And people could buy tickets like a pop concert.
Wow.
So Yoji and some of Kansai Yamamoto did this huge stadium gig
So like pop
where
concerts.
people, and they were packed, like fashion fans. And it was kind of confusing because I'd come from Europe where it's, the press, the
Yeah,
buzz.
it's very close.
Yeah.
But you see
And I thought, how great that these kids want to come and look at Yogi's clothes or whatever, and they're good.
For real, yeah.
But that's something that's, I think it is really special about London, because it's not the same as being there. There's something like 70% of the shows at London Fashion Week are live streams, and you think, that's actually great, because kids who love JW Anderson, or anyone who loves JW Anderson, can watch his show, and that's not happening in other cities. And also they can buy it through channels like Topshop when they do these kind of collaborative ranges. And it's that spirit in London of letting everyone have a piece, which I think is really, really great. But I don't see why other cities haven't picked up on that in the same way.
I didn't think they have. Have they not? No.
I think a few people are doing it, but I just think it's what we were talking about yesterday, is this culture of fashion in London. It's really part of our culture here. I mean, I think along with music and art and architecture and all those things, like, any 16-year-old you talk to will know something about fashion and will have an idea of like what they think they should be wearing and what other people are wearing and who the designers are. And I don't think that's the same everywhere in Europe.
I don't think it should be. It's glorious to go to Paris sometimes and sit there and look at a Paris show. I'm not a huge fan of Milan, but that's my taste. Or I'll go to a garage in Kingston Road and watch a kid throw out 10 outfits. I think it's good that it's different. What worries me a bit about this is you don't see the feel of it. And that's what I always miss from a show, and I don't care how many screens, 3D, it can be whatever. If I don't see a glorious woman in fabric walking past me, I don't get this. Maybe that's because I'm older, but I don't get the same sense of desire that you should really get from watching clothes.
It's like Amanda, when you had the fabric samples, and I think for JW Anderson, you do kind of goes against what we do, but you do lose some of that. When you touch them, you realise kind of it's a whole other process of thought. And
or Amanda was saying, the way John used to almost create a perfume around his shows. You can't get that off that, unfortunately. You can get knowledge off these, but you can't get feelings.
Not yet, not until there's a way of... Well, there is. I mean, maybe, there's an amazing woman who makes, who can make the smell of any feeling, actually, and that could be put into film. But that, I maybe in the way we film actually shows, there could be a way that actually you've got to...
Well, a lot of designers have gone into film. I love what Gareth did with the use of film and creating...
Exactly. I find that more exciting than staying with just...
straight catwalk.
I think as a way of taking it on a step, actually, and opening up access-wise to more and more people. Would be actually to have really incredible films. Where you go right into this, or maybe you go into the story of where this came from as well. It's a bit like us all sitting together, and we're full of our feelings about. I'm reacting to your leather and the pale creased beige thing, and to Judy's stripe that actually has got, it looks like it's been bleached on the sails of a ship. I mean, it's like amazing. So all these things are going on, and we can get those across in a film. Imagine if we made the J.W. Anderson film. His show would be really exciting.
Because that's the thing, is that he's thinking about what everyone's feeling in that room. So maybe there was amazing music, and you see the fabric. He was thinking about how the fabric's going to move in the room.
We have the music on.
What was the music? There's always another message, another dimension that's often put out with the music. Michel Goubert for Carl, and he really geniusly adds a different
and it really makes a difference. It really does.
Like for the Chanel Baroque collection, the Byzantine collection, he puts psychedelic music. He just goes
juxtapose everything, and then it makes you feel it, because it is all about. It's just when you're with art, it's about the reaction that you have to something. That's all it really is. And so when you're that close to things, you see the movement, and also, even the girls look different, the makeup looks different. So, we're getting one version of it, and we still think it's amazing, but, I suppose when you're in that room, he spent all of that time thinking about how those fabrics are moving in person, and the way those girls look in the hair and makeup when you see them like that, and the music that goes with it, and it does have a different effect. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think that's the Top Shot.
Yeah, the Top Shot.
Top
That's
Shot.
it, is
Top
it?
Shot pod.
Yeah.
Oh, is that's
Looks a
maybe
bit
what he calls the
2001
treatment
for
room.
me.
Yeah. The treatment. I was
Maybe
gonna
that's
say.
it. Maybe there's an ironic thing about the tree, which I kind of approve of that, really.
But do you like that kind of little sense of rebellion that I think you see?
Totally. More of, need it.
Always.
But do you think that's starting to? Have you noticed? You must notice in the studio when you speak to young designers. Do you think they're starting to lose that natural and innate sense of doing something different? Do you think it's always something that's kind of referenced? When you see young designers referencing kind of punk or referencing those things rather than actually kind of embodying the spirit of them?
I don't think it's changing. People suck up different influences. What I like about it is when people start mixing them around, which is what Amanda just said about the music.
Yeah, you
Like
just
Fabulous Chanel, To Die For, and then psychedelic music. I mean, I love things like that. Or, even some of these fabrics, you think, how's he going to put those together? But he has. And it's a terribly modern one, and then it is one that looks like a kid's drawing. I love that kind of mixing up things.
I think that's the unexpected element. Everyone wants to be a little bit surprised. If everyone did, if he came out, I didn't expect him to do this. If he came out with something...
I'm a big fan of character, and he's got quite great character. And when you bring character to clothes, it actually brings them alive.
Yeah.
That's why anyone can invent their own.
The thing, so many, it strikes me that some new designers can use references, but you've got to, it's not a question of just sticking the references together. You've got to go behind them. Everything, was emerged because of a reason. There's a whole force field behind,
Do you think?
And it's
That
not
story.
just,
it's not just like looking at the picture and sticking it on your board.
your...
It's like there's the idea behind that, and that's what
Do
should
you
be.
think, I mean, our generation, Amanda, where it was like
New.
You could go on holiday and find a leaf and you'd go, God, if I could make a blouse that looked like this, and whereas the reference now for a lot of young people is a screen or is a picture in a magazine that's already been referenced by
So exactly, I mean, what's happening is that they'll reference actually tear pages out of a magazine or, screen images that are sort of 6 months old, which are all themselves
or it's actually a
copied.
copy of a reference. That's what worries me about too much information. You don't have chance to educate yourself about it.
Exactly.
I think it's also that there's so much information everywhere at everyone's fingertips. It's hard to find. I mean, also maybe at schools now, everything's about research online, and everyone can access that. So it's almost harder and harder and harder to find things that no one else has ever seen, or to source.
But it's not even about what nobody's seen, because I think actually it's the detail that surrounds us all that has something extraordinary and makes it unique. Yeah. So it's just a matter of sitting still and actually having something to say.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting thing about JW is he's got a lot to say.
Yeah.
And it's really, I want to know more.
He thinks about it. You can tell.
I want to go in that story. It's really exciting, and but there's aggression in there. There's sensitivity in there. There's a lot of things, but it's.
That's your favourite look, Judy. But I'm interested. You say he's thought about things, because in his notes he says it's about a lab where problems are worked out and solutions are found. And I think it really sums him up.
That's what he's
taking
doing,
a step
isn't
back
he?
and thinking and giving some statement, what he sees as a solution.
That's also a definition of couture, actually, because the couture is always defined as the laboratory of ideas.
Yeah.
So actually, it's quite an interesting idea of actually to find, the answer to the proposition of wearing, but of also what a woman is or a man at this point in time, which is really exciting.
Do you think that kind of, the fact that he's clearly so sort of involved in intellectualizing and thinking about his clothing, do you think that'll stand him in good stead? Do you think that's something that's really important to a designer?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean he's always going to make amazing clothes, but I think it's definitely going to do interesting things. You know, I think that's what I was saying before. Is that, you know, you want to be excited and inspired and intrigued and interested, and that's definitely a big deal in itself.
Well, you said he started off as an actor. You know, you might get bored with being a fashion designer and decide to be something else, a writer or whatever. But you know, creative people do have to move around like that and not really set themselves a boundary. Obviously, it's working for him, and he's enjoying it. You can kind of tell.
Yeah, I think actually
he's realising what he wants to do, which is part of it. You know.
For me, actually, the words are the actor in him, and I think the clothes are for me, is where the heart is. And I think that sometimes actually the titles, a bit like, you know, when there's a title to a very clever piece of modern art that I don't particularly understand, then the title is so clever it reads like a whole poem, that's another world in itself, and that words actually are incredibly powerful and set up all sorts of different worlds and resonances and levels, and that actually my feeling is either be a writer and write a play or a film or an act in it, but actually just stick to the clothes because they speak for themselves.
That's a really lovely note to end on. That was so lovely. No one's going to top that.
Shut up! Of course they will.
Amanda's allowed to headline on, so.
Should we give him a final and very well deserved round of applause?
Yes, definitely.